you to understand that tomorrow is a complete myth. It doesn't exist. It may happen, and it may not happen. And I don't say that because I'm dour and I look down on the world. In fact, those that know me would say I'm absolutely the opposite of that. I say that because I know I've experienced that. On October 31st in 2006, me and a friend were helping another friend in a campaign. And I, at the time, drove a Subaru Outback, and my friend drove a Mini Cooper. I think it's fast. Most likely would have been in the Mini Cooper, but as it was, ski season was coming, and that's a religion in my world, and so we had to get something more intense, and we were test driving a Jeep Rubicon, a big, beefy Jeep Rubicon. I was sitting there, I'd been there about 15 minutes, and I was typing an email. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I remember there was a moment of consciousness where I kind of came to, and my entire world was completely upside down. I remember I had a pain right here in my chest. I had lost my breath, but I had lost it here, not here. And there was a woman at the door, and she was asking me my name and telling me to state where I'm from, to count to 10. I remember looking over at my friend, and he was not conscious. And I remember looking directly in front of me, and there was a truck embedded in the front of our Jeep. We'd been hit by a drunk driver. This guy had passed out, come across the street, and hit us head on. In fact, I remember as I was coming to, I looked across the hood, and he was pinned against the wheel, and he was writhing, just writhing there. We were his third felony DUI charge of the year. He had hit people in May and June. They put him away until 7 days before I got to meet him. In fact, I was laying on the ground, and I turned to a guy next to me and said, "What happened?" And he said, "I don't know, I think my friend hit you." And I was talking to the guy that hit me. I didn't know. And in my crazy need to photograph the world around me, I grabbed my phone and stood up and started walking around. Now, I had a couple of issues physically. I broke my sternum, I displaced several ribs. My legs were a mess because they had hit the front. They hit the front of the dashboard. And later, the next year, I would actually have my vertebrae in my neck here fused. They would go in and fuse that vertebrae. If you take a look at this, I remember as I was walking around snapping photos, I remember hearing the medical workers saying, "He has to lay down, make him lay down, take his phone." No one was taking my phone. I was taking photos. Photo of life, and today was this. I remember at the time that I thought, I should call Teresa. This seems like one of those life events where you call those that are close to you, right? But I didn't want her to worry, so I called her up and said, hey, I've been in a fairly serious accident, but I'm good. You don't need to come down. I remember she asked me, should I come down? No. I looked around, and there were 9 police cars, 2 of those ambulances, and a full fire engine, and I thought, this would freak her out, and I don't want that to happen, so no, don't come down. And yes, she probably should have. They took me away and performed some x-rays. They determined initially what was wrong with me. I was able to leave on my own accord, and I went home and walked through the door. Teresa didn't know how serious the accident was. I hadn't told her I was protecting her, right? And I walked through the door on Halloween Day and looked down at my beautiful kids. And they were ready to go. And I remember Teresa said, hey, come on, we got a party to go to, so you got to get ready. And the enormity of what I had faced that day collapsed on me in that moment. Do you remember that? And I just broke. Now I know what you're thinking. How could a guy that manly shed tears at the loss that he's talking about? But I started thinking about what could have happened. What if I had not had my seatbelt on? I was sending an email, and those windshields are flat. He hit us at 45 miles an hour. We were at a dead standstill. I would have gone straight into that with my head. Just slammed it. I remember I started to find out a little bit about the guy, and he obviously had a history. And then something horrible or wonderful happened. They prosecuted him and didn't tell us. I wanted my moment. I wanted to stand up in a courtroom and point at this guy and let him know that he had forever changed me. And I called up the prosecutor's office, and they said, I'm sorry, that case is closed. You can't, we're not going to talk to you. And I called a friend of mine that at the time was the mayor of Ogden City, and I said, anything you can do? And within 5 minutes, he said, I had a voicemail from the prosecutor's office that said, yeah, come in, we'll talk, let's talk. So I showed up to talk to the guy, me and my friend, and I remember as I said to him, we didn't even have a chance to tell our side of the story. And he said, I'm sorry, it's done. And my friend just freaked. He did that freak, like that out-of-body freak-out experience where I thought he was going to come over the desk and try and beat this guy. And right then is when it snapped for me. Right in that moment, I realized that I really had a choice of how I was going to look at this. I could look at this from the stand of a victim, couldn't I? I was a victim. I was hit by a drunk driver. I was parked legally on the side of the road. I could look at it that way. Or I could make a conscious decision to look at this another way. I could realize that I still had my seatbelt on after 15 minutes. I could look at this that I just happened that day to be driving a car big enough that it could take it. I could look at it from the realization that that night I went home to my kids and my wife. I could look at it that way. I want to challenge you to be a person that chooses the way you look at the world. The media will provide you a negative message by default. It's just out there. Today someone was stabbed. There's a natural disaster in this area of the world. We're pending bankruptcy in this country. The media will feed that like crazy. My challenge to you is to do whatever you need to see the world through a positive lens. There is truth in the saying that you change the way you see the world and the world changes. There's truth in that, and it's up to you.